Too often times we hear people talk about what we don't have or what they wish we had. So my approach to this is just to help share with people what all is available. When people start to become more engaged, then it just makes everything richer.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our community. Ryan, how are you?
Good. Great.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Long time no see, right?
Yeah, it's been
Just
a whole
kidding.
month.
Yeah, well, it's been like 3 minutes because we got out of the car and we walked in the studio.
Yeah.
So we're here. We're coming to you today from the I've Decided Studios. And our podcast, Our Community, is sponsored by I've Decided and the Greater Peoria Family YMCA, where Ryan and I are both employed, proudly employed, as you can see on Ryan's shirt and my name tag here. But we're excited today to come and talk to you a little bit about the word emerge. Which for the I've Decided community is the weekly winning word. And if you checked your email Sunday night or sometime after, you got a nice long email from Kim with tons of resources in it and
Good stuff.
yeah,
Yes.
some really good stuff and some commentary or an article that Kim wrote about the word emerge.
Yeah, and her kind of 4 steps to emerging, and I know that
We made it 5.
You've got a bonus in there for
I got
us,
a
which is
bonus
great.
step
So
in there for those that are
stay
in the
tuned.
I've Decided community. You want to stick around for the 5th one.
That's right.
So for sure. But yeah, it's an interesting word, and there's a lot of depth to it, I think, and hopefully in our conversation today we'll bring some of that out and maybe share some pointers for everyone of how to use the word emerge on how we build our success, right? Which is why we're here.
Yeah.
And why the I've Decided community is here, is to help each other become successful in achieving our personal goals and our dreams, right?
That's right. Yep.
But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the why.
Let's talk
All
about
right?
the why.
Since we're here, we got a microphone, we got an audience, let's tell them all the great things about the why and how the why has emerged over the last year as we've dealt with the pandemic. What's
Yeah.
going on at the Y, Ryan?
Well, right now at the Y, actually just started yesterday, is the Summer Out Loud Challenge. And it's a 3-week challenge specifically for families. If you've done some of our challenges in the past, those were kind of on an individual basis, but we would love for you to come out and enjoy the Y, pick up your challenge passport at the front desk, and get involved. It may help your family emerge into a more healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, so talk about some of the things that we'll be challenged to do as part of the Summer Out Loud Challenge.
Well, there's a lot of just fun things that you can do as a family. That we've got some hiking and scavenger hunt type things on the Wise campus there. You can come visit the pool. You can take a class together as a family. And then we just have some things around the area that you can do at the Y or at home in your backyard or, at a park.
Do you have to come to the Y to participate in the Summer Out Loud Challenge?
You don't have to come to the Y to participate in the Summer Out Loud Challenge. You can actually visit stronglife.org and sign up there. You'll text SUMMER to the number that they've got there, and we'll get you hooked up. And the great thing about the challenge is if you complete all the stuff in the passport, whether you come to the Y or not, you'll be entered to win not only a prize from the local Greater Peoria Family YMCA, but you may win a vacation valued up to $5,000 for your family. So check it out. Come by the Y or visit stronglife.org.
So, yeah, one of the neat things about this whole concept, this challenge concept, that we've done a few of these, started last fall, and we're going to be doing more as we move forward. But this is kind of a national movement, right? There are hundreds of YMCAs across the country that are doing this exact same challenge, this opportunity for members of those YMCAs or just community members at large to become more active, right? Become more healthier. That's the overarching kind of strategy for all of this.
Start in on some good habits, whether they're for you as an individual or your family. Just a little introduction, and the Y is there to help you try to achieve your goals.
Yeah. And so there's a whole community of followers. There's a social media community, a Facebook community primarily, where all these people are engaged, they're sharing all their activities. It's really a pretty cool thread just to kind of scroll through.
It is.
For me, late at night or early in the morning when I get up, just to kind of look and see what people are saying. But
A lot of positivity and encouragement.
a lot of reinforcement, and it's just kind of cool to interact with people from all over the country who are kind of going through the same experiences that you're going through. So
Yeah.
definitely take an opportunity, if you haven't already, to look at that information and come join us at the Y, or join us where you are, because you can really do a lot of this stuff from anywhere,
That's right.
right? And there's no cost to it.
Nope.
either
Absolutely
for
free.
anyone. All right, so back to the weekly winning word, emerge. So let's set the stage here a little bit. Let's provide a definition for it. We always like to talk a little bit about what's the meaning of the word. And the meaning for, or the definition for emerge, is to come forth into view or to rise from. So when you hear that, what do you think about?
I don't know. I always think of, I mean, kind of silly, but emerge sounds like you're something crawling out of a cave or coming up from some deep dark place, right? Like
Yeah.
you're emerging. I don't know. That's
Well,
just what
hey,
comes to
it
mind
is.
for
It
me.
is what it is. It's certainly coming out of. Here's where mine went to when I was thinking about this. It's coming from darkness into light.
Same kind of
Yeah,
concept.
just
Yeah.
not as creepy.
Not as
maybe as you're coming out of a cave or something like that.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, you're rising up, right? You're moving forward. You're lifting yourself up.
You're a cicada emerging from. No, I'm
Oh,
just kidding.
Okay. All right, never mind.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that one up later and see. But, you know, I think it's an interesting word. I think it's an interesting concept, and I think we have an interesting discussion around it. So there's a quote that Kim shared in her article that I wanted to share too, just to kind of set the framework for the conversation. Because we're going to dig into this, to the differences of how we approach change and things like that, and around this whole conversation. But the quote goes like this: "Some changes look negative on the surface, but you will soon realize that space is being created in your life for something to emerge." Which is a pretty, it's a great quote, and there's so much truth in that statement,
Yes.
right? Typically when things go bad, our first response is, oh my gosh,
Right.
the world's falling apart.
Throw up your
right?
hands.
It's all negative. And I think that's a natural reaction for most people, if not all people, to think of the worst when things go bad. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and how to shift our mindset maybe to become more focused on the positive and think through things a little bit differently. So, you know, the last year and a half has been a pretty significant challenge for just about everybody
A
that's
lot
out
of us
there,
who are in
right?
a deep, dark place.
Yeah, true. Everybody has been dealing with the impacts of the pandemic, COVID-19, and what that's done to how that's impacted all of us from a professional standpoint, a personal standpoint. There have been a lot of restrictions put on all of us. It's limited our ability to do certain things, and it's caused some challenges for us. And you know, we've heard a lot of people talk about over the last year, and I know I've said this myself more times than I could probably even count or even care to admit to be honest with you. But, you know, as we were going through the throes of the pandemic, especially last summer, a year ago this time, we were a few months into it by then, you know, the conversation was, man, I can't wait for this to get over with and we just go back to the way things were, right?
Right.
Back to normal, so to speak, the whole back to normal comment. So I know you've heard it. I know you've said it. I've said it. You know, but why do you think people long for that to be a reality? Why do you think people want to go back to the way it was? What do you think it is that drives people that way?
I think it's a matter of comfortability. And you know, something bad happens and you're like, oh man, I was way more comfortable
10 minutes ago or a month ago or last summer, it was way more comfortable than this summer. And instead of, seeking out the silver lining to the cloud there, and maintaining a positive attitude, it's really easy to slide into, man, I just wish things were the way they were.
Yeah. I don't have to deal with this anymore. I just want to go back to the way it was, right? Rather than focus on the positives that come from it. And I think now that we're, I don't know almost coming up on 18 months from when it started, pretty close to that, I think. And we're able to look back and reflect on the changes that have taken place. There's a lot of positives, I think, that we could start to list. Looking at it from the perspective of what we do at the Y, there's some good things that have changed. It's forced us to do things differently on how we operate, how we serve our members, and those are good things. And a lot of those things are going to stay with us as we move forward, and the pandemic may be long behind us. But it's taught us a lot about ourselves. And that's the whole thing about, when change comes, and I think we want to resist it initially a lot of times because it's different, or we have this fear of the unknown, or we're just comfortable where we are, like you said. But change is inevitable. Whether we're planning for change or not, it's going to happen. Something's going to happen that's going to change our life in some form, right?
Absolutely.
It's probably happened to us dozens, if not hundreds of times throughout our life.
Probably dozens of, hundreds of times throughout the day. There's little changes that shape us, and some we acknowledge and some we don't. Right. And but the big ones, they're shaping us.
Yeah. So I would say that our approach and our mindset to that change is what is going to determine whether or not it's going to be a successful venture for us or a not so successful venture for us, right? It's a mindset. And, as a believer in Christ and that, God gave us the ability to choose. We're here on this earth. We have an opportunity to do what we want, right? Obviously, we're called by Him to follow His plan for our life and all those things. Follow the Scriptures. Love everyone, treat others with respect, do all of those things that we're told in the Bible, follow the 10 Commandments, all of those things. But we have a choice, right, to do that or not. We're not forced to. And I think that when change comes in our life, the same thing applies, right? We have a choice. We can either embrace it or we can push back against it, right? And so I wanted to share a quote that I have this hanging in my office. And it was given to me a little over 4 years ago. And it was given to me by a friend of mine, a former board member of mine at the prior YMCA I worked for, which is up in Sterling, Illinois, the Sterling Rock Falls YMCA. And Jim was one of our board members. And I remember when he gave it to me. I announced recently that I was leaving the Y. I was going to come to Peoria, back home to my hometown, run the Y here. And he gave me a quote that I want to share with everybody because it kind of frames up some of this conversation. But here it goes. It says, when your desire is stronger than your fear, change is your friend. When your fear is stronger than your desire, change is your biggest enemy. There's a battle inside of us being fought over control of our lives. One of the biggest battles is between the desire to improve and the fear of the change that is necessary to create it. When desire wins, you see change as an agent of growth. When fear wins, you see change as an enemy, forcing you to do things differently. It's real, it's constant, and the winner defines your life. So embrace change. It's kind of how I sum that up. I think it's very important that when we're faced with those difficult circumstances that we have to find a way to embrace that. And how are we going to grow through that? In order for us to emerge through a crisis or through a negative experience, it's important for us to embrace the understanding that change can be good,
Yeah.
right?
And what a load off your shoulders if you can get to that point, right?
Yeah.
What if you're carrying the weight of, financial troubles and your health that maybe isn't so great and you're worried about COVID and or whatever it might be, and just letting go just a little bit and embracing the place where you're at,
Right.
and seeking out a positive attitude and the opportunities that you might find in that space.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree completely. So in the article that Kim wrote, she talked about four steps, right? 4 points that she made about how, or 4 reminders, I think she actually called it, 4 reminders to help us emerge stronger than normal. And I added a 5th one. We're going to save that one to the last. But as I read through the article and as I was preparing for this conversation, I thought, there's another reminder that I think is helpful, at least for me, and I want to share that with everyone else, of kind of what brings it all together for me. But the first reminder that Kim shared was the KISS method, right? The keep it simple, silly, Kim called it. I think we've all heard it, maybe that last word said a little bit differently, but she uses the word silly, and the point is still the same, right? Keep it simple. You don't have to overthink it so much, right? And that's typically what we do. You and I were talking earlier. When we're faced with a challenge or a significant change in our life, we all automatically kind of want to get to the end of it, right? We want to race to the end of it. We see maybe where we want to be, but we forget about how the importance of the start so much, right? And I think that's really what kind of the KISS method boils it down to. Is for me, it's be in the moment, understand where you are, where you want to go. That's important, right? You got to have a goal in mind, but you got to embrace every step of the process.
Yeah, and really resist the temptation to overthink and to, I'm thinking 10 steps out and there are all these things that might happen, and just look for those places where you can start.
Yep.
Right? Just get going. Take care of what is right in front of you and keep moving.
Right. And less is more, right? You want
No need to make things harder than they already are, right?
No, we don't need to do that. But we tend to kind of lean that way, or we start to put barriers up. When we start to think that way, we start to build additional barriers that maybe don't necessarily need to be there, that will prohibit us or slow us down from achieving success. So I think it's a really important point. So, I was thinking about the KISS method, and I wanted to do a little bit of research. I thought, where did that come from? Where did the KISS method come from? I've heard it my entire life. I used to have a basketball coach back in high school, so more than 30 years ago, that would say it all the time. Keep it simple, and he would use the other S word, not the silly word. But we all got it, right? And it was important, and so it's been around for a long time. And what I found out in my research is that it's been around since the mid-century era. Now, when I say the mid-century era, I'm curious, do you know what that means? Because I didn't. I had to look up, what is the mid-century era? I don't know what that is.
I'm not sure, but I'm assuming it's the middle of, we're not in the middle of this century yet, so the middle of last century.
Yeah,
gotta
right.
be, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was the 1933 to 1965. That's
okay.
how it was defined
All right.
in the article that I read. So
Seems like the
it was
middle-
on the internet, so it must be true.
Must be true.
Right? I assume it's true. So that's what it said. But it said that it came from a gentleman by the name of Kelly Johnson. Right? He created it. Kelly Johnson was an aircraft engineer.
Okay.
Right? So you think about that. He's building planes, right, or aircraft in the middle of the 20th century, right, the late 1900s, at a time where flights are starting to prosper and all those things. So they're building planes. They're not only building them, but they're understanding how to keep them in the air and keep people safe. And he came up with this method on how they were going to do that. So that's where it started. So as I thought about that, I was like, well, if their aircraft engineers are using the KISS method, I should probably be embracing the KISS method a little bit more too. Because if they're going to do it for how they build planes, and we've all had that opportunity and experience and don't really understand how all that works, but that's a pretty important thing.
Yeah.
And if they're smart enough there to kind of figure it out and boil it down and keep it simple on how they do their planning, I think that we could probably do that.
Yeah, we in my teams at the Y, we try to. Somebody says KISS once a meeting when somebody's gone off on a, and you know,
As a
somebody
reminder
on my
to-
team will look at me and say, "KISS it," or I will tell them to KISS it, and we'll let it go
Yeah.
because it's too much. We just need to get back to,
The basics.
keeping things simple.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. The second reminder from the article was to focus on the opportunity.
And that seems like a really good way to keep it simple, right?
Yeah. Elaborate on that a little bit for us.
Well, it's really easy to get negative and focus on all the doors that are closed to you. But if we're looking for those opportunities, well, those are the places that we should start. And we should be looking for those opportunities where we can make inroads sooner rather than later, so that we don't have time to overthink them and push them off.
Yep. Yeah, I think there was a point in Kim's article that she made that we have to be intentional about training our mind to think about the opportunity, or ask ourselves, I think it said, ask yourself, where is the opportunity in this situation, right?
Yeah.
Deflect the negative thoughts, be intentional about thinking about or answering the question, where is my opportunity in this moment?
And not to get all, but if you're thinking about this from a place of darkness, an opportunity would be a point of light, and we're heading towards that, right?
Right.
We're heading towards the light, and hopefully moving onward and upward and emerging.
Yeah, that's good. So then the third reminder was to nurture something new. Nurture something new. New thought is important, right? Innovation is important. Creativity is important in order for us to be successful. We can't always think about the same thing all the time, right? So let's use the example at the Y, as the CEO of the Y, if I came into every meeting, every planning meeting that we had at the Y, and I said, well, back in the 90s, which really isn't that long ago, but that's when I started my career, right? The mid 90s. This is the way we did it. So we're gonna go back and do it that way. That doesn't make a lot of sense for where we are today.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We didn't have a lot of the we didn't have any of the technological advances that we have today available to us then. So it wouldn't make a lot of sense for us to operate in that old model, right? We had to evolve our thinking. We had to be creative. We had to be innovative. We had to follow trends and things like that in order to get to a place where we are today. And I think about that from the perspective of the impacts of the pandemic and what it did to our operating model at the Y, and just basic services that we provide to our membership changed dramatically.
Overnight.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, overnight, right?
Yeah.
How
And
did
then-
they change?
Well, we almost immediately, when we couldn't have members in the building anymore, we flipped to, we embraced Zoom like the very next day and had our first yoga class online the Monday after we were closed. And and that evolved, that was a change that came out of necessity, but we really there were so many changes, and they kept coming at us. It seemed like there were new changes and new restrictions every day, and I know that's not new for everybody out there, but we were trying to roll with the punches there and embrace our reality at the time and make the most of it. And that turned into, we started having classes outside when we were allowed. And then we built a virtual YMCA platform it's going to stick around for at least a foreseeable future.
Right, probably forever.
Yeah, where people can, our members can log in and take a class with their favorite instructor, either on demand or, we've got a lineup of live classes.
Right.
So, yeah.
We share that example because it's important, right? If we didn't have the ability to be innovative or creative or embrace new ways of thinking, we couldn't have gotten through what we've gotten through, right? And we still haven't recovered fully,
Right.
but we're certainly made some pretty good progress, especially here recently. And if we're being honest, I think we can attribute a lot of that to the work that was done during kind of the worst of the pandemic and how we were able to respond in a way that was appropriate and that encouraged others to kind of stay engaged. Right.
We took the opportunity while we were closed to members to do some infrastructure things and make some changes to just the physical plant of the building, so that because we knew we were going to open up again, so we took that opportunity so that we could emerge stronger on the backside.
Right, and the bottom line is when you're focused on the creative, when you're focused on the innovative, and we talked a lot about the why there, but I think it applies everywhere. Yeah. Right, it takes your mind away from the negative, right? So it forces you kind of away from that negative, restrictive way of thinking and allows your mind to kind of move forward and be more progressive.
I think we heard a lot about that throughout the pandemic with, people going back to take online classes and maybe get another degree or I've got quite a few friends that opened up businesses and took the opportunity to, reimagine themselves and their professional career and move forward. So, I think it definitely not only applies to the why, but to individuals as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then the fourth reminder that came out of the article was to recall our history, and I really like this one. Because I think that there's a lot that we can learn from our past, right? And we're talking a lot about moving forward and not focusing on the past, but we've been through the valley at different times of our lives. We've struggled at different times, professionally, personally, whatever. Everybody's had those peaks and valleys. That's just the way life works. And each one of those negative experiences that we've gone through, those valleys that we've pulled ourselves out of, if we can recall the history and think back on those could be good motivation or momentum builders for us to get through this next challenge.
Yeah, taking a look back at how far you've come and some of the hurdles that you've made your way past is a good way to just bolster yourself, right? And think about, I can do this. Yeah. Or maybe, maybe you can look back and remember a lesson that's long forgotten about resilience or moving forward or how to handle a certain situation.
Yep.
So it's good to recall your history.
Yeah. And that could definitely be a good building block for how you move forward. And then the fifth reminder, which I've written,
bonus,
I've added it on to Kim's 4, is rely on your faith. And I think that for me, it kind of folds it all together, right? So I've shared numerous times on this podcast over the last couple of years and in other situations is that I have a strong faith. There's certainly room for or opportunity for improvement with that, and I strive to get better every day with that. But for me, it's just having the understanding that Christ is my Savior. God is in control of my life, right? I'm here to serve Him. I'm in this situation for a reason. He's placed me in this challenge because there's something that I need to learn from this. That's the way I look at it. And it doesn't happen instantaneously. Sometimes it's the day after maybe a negative experience starts. Sometimes it's a week or so after. And it takes somebody like my wife or a pastor or a close friend to say, hey, remember who you are
Yeah.
and who you're here to serve, and that this experience is for a purpose. So when you take that perspective, I know for me, it changes everything. It's like, okay, all right, I know I can take this on because I'm not taking it on by myself, right? God is here with me. He's going to see me through this. I'm going to grow through this experience. So let's get to work and get through it, right? Because I know that there's great joy on the other side of that.
Yeah. That's eases your mind when you can think of it that way.
It certainly does for me.
I think you could actually use Kim's reminders as kind of a blueprint for prayer about the situation that you're in. You know, Lord, help me have a positive mindset. Help me understand why I'm here and what your plan is for me. Help me to not get in the way of myself and to keep things simple, and just help me move forward the way that you want me to. Help me make good choices. So I for me, when I read Kim's article and some of the notes that we put together and we got to talking about it, I was like, oh man, that's what I'm gonna use that tonight. And that's going to be my prayer tonight.
Well,
So
prayer is a powerful thing, and,
Yeah.
and so is that faith component. And I think when you're in the throes of the challenges, having a faith to rely on certainly helps carry you through. There's no doubt about it. I
Yeah.
think of the picture that hung in my parents' house for years, and I'm sure it's still there now. Called the footprints in the sand. Everybody's probably seen it, right? When you're walking along. The individual or the picture is there's two sets of footprints there, and the person's asking when they look back is, Lord, where were you during that time in my life where there was only one set of footprints? Well, the answer is those were my footprints because I was carrying you
Right.
through the challenge, right, when you needed it. And I think about that a lot, and that's really what it means to me, the whole faith component. So I looked up some scripture just to help support that thought. And I wanted to share it because I think it's important to kind of put it in the perspective of biblical perspective. And there's scripture in Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11, and it reads this: "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and to give you a future." So there's a promise there, right? That He knows every hair on our head. He knows everything that's going to happen to us, even this trial that we may be going through or this difficult circumstance. So you're there for a reason, right? And you're going to prosper through this if you just trust in me and what's going on during this time. So take that for what it's worth. It's gold for me, I can tell you that. And it's important. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. I know we've gone past our time a little bit, or our planned time, but
Yeah.
there's really no end to this. We can go all day if you want, Ryan.
Yeah,
Wanna just
we're
keep
glad you're still
rolling?
here.
But yeah, we're glad you're there. For those of you that are listening on the podcast, and we look forward to coming back next month and talking about whatever word Kim has planned for us then. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it'll be great, and we'll have a great discussion about it. But thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for joining me again
Thanks for having
this
me.
month, Ryan.
Yeah.
So thank you to everyone out there, and we look forward to seeing you next time